Hi everyone, this is Grand Stratagem here, and today we're going to be discussing the most effective way to collect cats in Kenshi. Now, unfortunately, I'm not talking about those cute, cuddly bundles of joy that go meow meow, but rather the nomenclature that the characters in this game use to describe their money. If you look on the bottom right, you see a little lowercase c, and this is what stands for cats. And the game tells me I have 32,000 of them, which I wish was the case in real life, but unfortunately, it is not. Rest in peace, dog lovers. Now, with that out of the way, let me preface this video by simply saying cats are not the end-all be-all in Kenshi. You don't have to be exorbitantly rich for this game to be effective in the late game. If you're into base building, after a certain point, you're going to be self-sufficient anyways, so you don't need to worry too much about cats. If you notice, I only have 32,000. This is basically a late game save, and I'm sure other people who've put hundreds of hours into this game have far more cats than I do. But really, after a certain point, cats become fairly meaningless, so don't feel tied or attached to them too much. However, in the early game, cats are extremely effective for bypassing a lot of the time sinks that you'll face. And what do I mean by that? Well, you're going to be focused heavily on survivability in the early game of Kenshi, because I'm sure if you've started or played this game for more than 5 minutes, you've realized very quickly that even the little dinky starving bandits will give you the beating of your life if you try to engage them in combat early on. So you need any sort of advantage you can get, and what that means is buying higher quality goods in towns, because a little dinky bandit out in the desert probably isn't going to have that high specialist quality leather armor that you want, where you can survive maybe 2 or 3 hits, where without armor you would have just died in 1 hit. So with that in mind, we need to find a reliable, steady source of income. We need to find a way not to starve to death in the streets, right? We got to make money somehow. So one little spoiler warning before we continue: I will be looking at the map a lot, so I have a lot of it explored in the save. So if you're not interested in seeing any of that and you really care about the exploratory aspect of this game, click off the video now. But for those of you who are still with me, let's keep on going. So our very first money-making strategy in Kenshi is, drumroll please, the try and intrude mining copper and iron strat near a settlement. This is the most effective, I would say, early game strat, especially for newer players, because you're not having to engage in combat at all, and it is a steady stream of income in the early game. Now, I'm actually looking at the city of Stack, and I've chosen this because it's a very great example of where this strategy is most effective. If we look on the map here, this is where Stack is, and this is the entirety of the map, so just for reference. And the reason why I chose Stack is it has copper ore nodes. The reason why copper is better than iron is because each unit of copper is about double the price of iron, so just save yourself the hassle and find a settlement that has copper ore nodes. Right here, you can tell that I have 2 workers that could effectively work this node. So that's 80% efficiency, which is pretty good. Now, if you look over here, we actually have a second copper ore node that allows 1 worker, but that's 3 potential workers that could be all mining copper. And if you notice, they're very close to the gate itself, so if we have any trouble that comes our way, we can just run to the gate and they'll do all the fighting for us, especially because we can't really fight anything in the early game. Now, if you look over in this little mountainous region, we actually have a hidden copper ore node nestled in the little mountains here. Now, this is another 2-person node, so we'll essentially have 5 workers working for us. And this is only accessible through the town. So if you're especially paranoid about outward attacks, this is the most safest copper ore node probably in the entirety of the game. Yeah, I mean, it's basically free copper. Do with it what you will. If you're feeling adventurous, there's a 4th copper ore node, and it is over in this region. If you actually, you can see my pickaxe cursor just came up. I don't have that part of the map loaded in right now because I don't have a character out that way. But if you have a character out there mining, and you have a character within Stack, and you have a storage box created for copper, which you have to build in a building that you bought in town, all your workers will then autonomously harvest copper and bring it into town, and then you can have another character just simply do the job of selling it to all the vendors when they have available cats. This is a very stable income for the early game, and you probably will not have to worry about starving to death anymore, which is very great, because that's your first initial concern in Kenshi, really. Now, that's the first strategy, but it has the con of being incredibly boring. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of just watching my characters mine away at an ore node for an hour and a half. And yeah, maybe I made like 30,000 cats and it was very easy, but I mean, I just can't stand it, I guess. Sorry. So we're going to talk about another strategy, which is trading. Yeah, you can trade in this game. You can play it like a trader RPG. And to just showcase that, we're going to go over to my Bathus character. And he is sneaking right now, but we don't need to do that. What we need him to do is to come over and talk to this barkeep. Don't mind the fact that he's crippled and on the ground. We don't got to talk about that. So, what we want to show off here are the trade goods. Now, if you look at my inventory, I have a few different trading goods here, mostly first aid kits and the skeleton repair kit. Now, if you look at the price markup, that's the percentage that we're interested in here, because as you travel throughout the map, you can look in certain shops and they will have markup. So for instance, there's a markup here for grog. We don't want to buy the grog here because it's a 102% increase. We want to find anything that's below the 100%, that's below the market average, as it were. And now these markups are consistent with each new game that you start. So for that world, it will always be consistent. So you can actually take notes and you'll be able to track prices as you travel across the world. Now, a lot of people aren't into that sort of thing. They may be too lazy for it, but it is an effective strategy, especially once you start maybe selling things like skeleton repair kits, which if you notice, they can sell upwards to 3,500 cats. And if you, I mean, they're pretty light, all things considered. So this is a very effective trade good item. Now, it used to be in Kenshi where you could find maybe like certain little cheat spots, as it were, where maybe you could find a skeleton repair kit, for instance, in the village of Stoat here for 88% markup. And then in Hang, down here, you could sell them for maybe like 127% markup. So you're making humongous margins of profit, and you didn't have to travel very far. Trading back then was very good, but unfortunately they changed that to where proximity does matter. You're not going to be able to find the greatest deals very, very close by. However, that doesn't mean your trader RPG experience is ruined. What that means is you just have to be a bit smarter about how you go about it. You need to really pay attention to having a trade route, which basically means you need to city hop from city to city to city to city and pay attention to what goods are cheap and which goods sell well. And that way you can kind of figure out a route where no matter where you end up, as long as you keep buying things in a certain pattern, you will essentially be making pretty good profit margins. Now, it's not the fastest way to make money, but it's definitely the most dangerous way to make money. So maybe not the most effective strategy, but definitely the most exciting strategy. Why? Well, I mean, Kenshi is most dangerous when you're just wandering around the map. And if you're like me, you get a little bit lazy and you just right-click on a town and just hope that your character doesn't die like he's playing a game of Oregon Trail, which mine always seem to do, and that is a little frustrating. But that's besides the point. That's essentially trading in a nutshell. Now, let's talk about another effective strategy, which is stealing everything you see. Yeah, that's actually a viable strategy in Kenshi as well. If we go ahead and start looting this bar, for instance, we can look in the wooden barrel, and we have a 31% chance to steal this green fruit. Now, we probably wouldn't risk trying to steal something that's only worth 30 cats, but this is very effective, especially when you are able to break into safes late at night. Unfortunately, if you notice, we only have a 31% chance of stealing this. Even if you break into a shop and you catch a shopkeeper when he's sleeping, he'll still have a very small percentage chance of being able to detect you. And they always seem to be able to detect me. And yeah, unless you're save scumming or doing something of that nature, you're most likely going to be caught and you will be labeled a criminal. And if that's the sort of gameplay you're looking for, well, go for it. Because very quickly, once your character becomes effective at stealing and knocking people out and whatnot, you'll be rolling in cats. But it does become a bit stale, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and a bit too easy after a certain point. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a thief character in your party. If you look here, I've got a very effective thief. He's very great at lockpicking, because you will come across, locked vaults and whatnot that, no one owns or anything, but might have some really cool goodies in. So definitely, you should probably have a thief of some sort in your campaign. Now, that's stealing, basically in a nutshell. where do you sell your stolen loot? Well, you can sell between factions pretty easily. So if you steal something from Holy Nation, the United Cities isn't going to care that you stole something from their enemy, for instance. But there is going to be a bit of a difficulty selling your items to the same faction, and definitely a difficulty selling the items that you just stole from the same shopkeeper. So yeah, don't make that mistake. And you can also sell things to fences, which are typically found in city bars. But yeah, you're usually going to take a price cut because of that. Now, that's stealing, more or less, in a nutshell. So let's keep on going. And another effective way to make money is making your own stuff and selling it. So we're going to go over here, and this is my little base I've got going on. And I've got a very effective smith here. He's a very great armor smith and a pretty decent weaponsmith. And this is something you can kind of come across later in the game, but it is a very reliable source of income in the sense that you're able to make high quality weapons and armor and sell it whenever you feel like. It's definitely slow, so I wouldn't recommend it. But you'll probably be utilizing it either way because, I mean, you want to have high-level equipment in the later game, and the best way to do that is make it yourself. So if you notice here, I've got specialist-grade leather pants, which was made by the same character, high-grade plated long boots, etc., etc. You can make a lot of good money doing this. It's maybe not the most time-effective. But this is very heavily linked with base building, and you know, if you're not into that, maybe this strategy isn't the one for you. Now, say you're not into base building, but you're into shopkeeping. That's right, you can actually, in certain areas of the game, you can create your own shop. You just have to buy a building in town, and we can't actually do it at the hub, but if you pick a location like Squin or an area in the United Cities, yeah, you can basically set up shop there, and the civilians there will buy goods like rum and grog, etc. So that's another thing you could do. It's a steady stream of income, although it's fairly slow, but you do have the protection of being within a city. So that is another option. Now, we are at the grand finale, and I would honestly say the most lucrative way to make money, and that is by selling drugs. Yes, you probably guessed it at this point. Yeah, I mean, selling drugs is great. If you look here, I'm actually a drug dealer. Yep, we got all our hashish right here. Now, if you notice, they're only worth 144 cats, which you would kind of say, well, that may not be worth the effort. But the unique factor about drugs here is that when you sell them in a place that it is illegal, they get a huge hike up in the price markup. So, for instance, if we were to sell hashish to our friends in Squin, for instance, we would get a 350% markup increase. Now, you can't actually sell them in Squin. Why is that? Because they don't have a shinobi thief guild there to sell them to. That's right. There are shinobi thieves in certain towns, for instance, in, let's say, I think, Shobatai, where they are essentially nestled in a big giant tower. They're pretty hard to miss. But as long as you pay your 10,000 cat fee to join them, you can then sell illegal goods to them, i.e. hashish. And if you sell this hashish, say, in this region of the United Cities, you get the highest markup you possibly can of 1,200%. So we're taking a 144 cats item, and we are hiking it up to 1,200%. That is absolutely crazy. You're making like basically 1,000 plus cats off each single unit. And if you notice, I've got 50 here, and I've got another box of 50 and a box of 28 and so on and so forth. So you can very easily start rolling in the cats, so to speak. Here's a hot tip about that though. You'll typically be stopped at the gate, and you will be searched by gate guards, so there is a risk. However, if you look here, you can actually just buy a pack animal. And don't ask me why, but they don't tend to search your pack animals, and you can just fill your bull up with a whole bunch of drugs, and then you can just walk into the city freely and sell to your local drug dealer. Yep, that's pretty much the most lucrative way to make money in this game. However, There is one more profession I have not yet talked about, and that is bounty hunting. Now, bounty hunting is something where I don't really recommend it as a prominent way of making money. Maybe other players have had different experiences, but the reason why I don't recommend it is very combat oriented, and by the time you are combat effective enough to start taking down high level bounties, you probably don't need cats at that point, or at least the amount of cats you're getting for these rewards is not worthwhile. So if you notice here, let's just talk a little bit about how bounties work and what the benefits are of bounties. If you see here, we've got Ponk of the Thrall Masters locked away here. He's got a 20,000 cat bounty, and if I wanted to, I could turn Ponk here into the Holy Nation or the United Cities for 20,000 cats. Not a bad price tag when you consider it. However, the real benefit behind bounties is not so much the cats that are awarded, but the fact that they offer reputation alongside them. Now, if you notice, a lot of people hate me in this save. The Shinobi Thieves don't, but if I were to be considerate enough to send this bounty to the Holy Nation, I'd probably get a reputation increase of about maybe 2 to 4 points. So yeah, just keep that in mind. They don't necessarily have to be the big name 20,000 cat bounties or anything, but you'll often run into just roaming NPCs that are just kind of spawned randomly. So don't be afraid to click on that bandit group you just found, and their leader might actually have a bounty on their head. Don't be afraid to, if a guard patrol comes by and knocks that bounty out, hey, no one's going to tell on you if you steal that guy's bounty. So just be an opportunist when you can. With that in mind, these are basically the most effective ways that I've found in this game to make money. The only thing I could other mention then it would just be the just scavenging in general. There are definitely locations on the map that have very, very lucrative loot, but they're usually hidden behind difficult and challenging enemies. Maybe that'll be different in your experience, but just be prepared. Don't worry, not going to spoil where the really juicy locations are, but they definitely are out there. So this is Grand Stratagem signing off, and I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you in the next one.